Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that, right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So we've all been there. You're at school and you're feeling very, very, very stressed out. And the reasons vary greatly, but we've all been there, and maybe you're feeling really, really stressed out right now, whether you're at school or not, but you're stressed out about stuff from your job. And as private school leaders, we have very, very stressful jobs. You're juggling the needs of your students, their academic and their social emotional needs, and you're trying to motivate and energize your teachers to do a very challenging job. And then you have parents that can be very demanding, and they pay tuition and they have very high expectations. And if you or one of your teachers are not meeting those expectations, the parents at your school are going to let you know about it, and sometimes at full volume or with capital letters and exclamation points in an email. And so these are things that stress us out. And in addition to that, you're expected to make wise decisions on the spot that will then be second guessed by parents or teachers or the board or all the above. And then you also have to figure out the budget and how to stay on budget and how to make payroll and how to pay for the leaky roof. And it's your responsibility to keep every student and staff member safe, physically safe and emotionally safe. And then you must respond to every email, return every phone call, attend every meeting, handle every discipline problem, motivate and inspire every teacher, retain every student, beat last year's test scores, come in under budget, keep every board member happy, and keep every parent happy. And that is the definition of a very, very stressful job. And we've all been there. But the question is, can you do anything to feel less stressed out when you were at school? And the answer is yes. And on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, we are going to discuss 4 things you can do to feel less stressed at school. And before we start with today's topic, I want to say thank you for listening to the podcast every week by giving you a free gift. And this is an 11-page PDF called The 7 Steps to Having Successful Meetings with Upset Parents. And, you know, a good teacher has a lesson plan, a good coach has a game plan, but I think that too many private school leaders don't have a plan when they sit down to meet with an upset parent. So this is a step-by-step plan, the 7 steps to having successful meetings with upset parents that you can use, and I believe it will help you tremendously. And you can get that at theprivateschoolleader.com/meeting. You can grab the 7 steps to having successful meetings with upset parents by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/meeting. And just as a thank you to say thank you for listening to the podcast. And then I just want to ask you a couple of questions. You know, we're talking about stress today. And, you know, as private school leaders, we often feel tired and discouraged, and sometimes we feel like the pace that we keep is not sustainable. And sometimes our school tends to invade our weeknights and our weekends, and then we feel like work-life balance is a myth, that's impossible. And so if you have thought that way at any point in your career, or especially if you're feeling kind of that way now, if you're feeling like you're in survival mode, if you're feeling like you're just trying to kind of do that army crawl to make it to the end of the year, then I want you to check out Thrive Academy. And Thrive Academy is a new online course that I created just for you, and it can help get you out of survival mode and get you back to feeling energized and fulfilled at school. And I was a head of school for 21 years, and then for the last 12 years, I've been a division head. And I used to be where maybe some of you are. I was diagnosed with burnout. I was in the hospital with ulcers, and I had kind of lousy relationships with my daughters and with my wife because the school was invading every minute of our free time. But I figured it out, and I started to do some strategies. I started to really work on myself and the way I engaged with work. And now it's been a lot better, and I feel happy and fulfilled, and that I want to do this for a long time. And so with Thrive Academy, it's about the transformation. It's not about the information. You can get information for free here on the podcast or, blog posts or YouTube videos. But if you could get out of the situation that you're in and be feeling more energized at school by consuming free content, you would have already done that. And so I just want you to check out Thrive Academy. It's an online course with over 9 hours of video content that's broken down into 39 lessons. And there's an 86-page workbook with guided notes and reflection questions and calls to action. And you get live office hours with me on Zoom for the first 6 weeks after you purchase Thrive Academy. And so I feel like this can change your life. I've taken all the mistakes that I've made and all the things that I've learned and put it into a course. And that course is called Thrive Academy. So you can check it out at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. That's theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. All right. So we're talking about stress on today's episode. And the basic definition of stress is that it is a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. But I'm more interested to talk for a moment about what happens to the body during stress, because the body's autonomic nervous system controls your heart rate and your breathing and your blood pressure and your vision. And we know all about the built-in stress response, the fight or flight response, and that helps our body to be better equipped to handle stressful situations. But here's the problem. Our autonomic nervous system, the thing that it does with fight or flight, is supposed to be temporary, just to give us enough time to run away from the bear. But we know as private school leaders that what happens is that we get into this long-term chronic stress, and that our nervous system is continually active, and that activating the stress response causes wear and tear on the body, and it's a physical wear and tear, emotional, and then some symptoms can develop. And so some of those physical symptoms are aches and pains, chest pain, or feeling like your heart is racing, feeling exhausted, or having trouble sleeping, or both, ulcers, headaches, dizziness, shaking, high blood pressure, grinding your teeth, muscle tension, stomach or digestive issues, irritable bowel syndrome, a weakened immune system. Those are just the physical things that can happen with long-term exposure to long-term chronic stress. But then we also know that it comes with its own emotional and mental challenges like anxiety, irritability, depression, listlessness, a lack of engagement, sometimes panic attacks, sometimes just profound sadness, and sometimes a disproportionate reaction, a small reaction to big things, a big reaction to small things, and just kind of having a hard time caring and feeling fulfilled. And so it was a real game changer for me when I learned recently in talking to my therapist that really what happens with long-term exposure to stress is that we have a dysregulated autonomic nervous system. And so what we're going to talk about on today's episode is what are 4 things that we can do to get us out of that when the autonomic nervous system is dysregulated. How can we get it back on track? How can we get it to be more regulated instead of staying in that fight or flight and then having all of that negative impact physically and mentally of all of that cortisol and all of the adrenaline and all of those things that we deal with when we're stressed out all the time for a long time. So all 4 of these things have worked for me, and I want to pass them on to you. So we're going to do these 4 things to feel less stressed at school. Number 1, drink water in the morning. Number 2, stop, and that's an acronym, STOP. We'll talk about that in a moment. Number 3 is to do a physiological sigh, SIGH, physiological sigh. And number 4 is going to be called Take 5. So number 1 is drink water in the morning. And so I know that you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, I get it. I drink a lot of water, but I just want to take a minute and talk about the importance of drinking water first thing in the morning. So the most dehydrated that we are in any 24-hour period is when we wake up in the morning. Now, of course, that could change if you're engaged in, like, if you just ran a 5K or something, you're going to be dehydrated. But on average, the most dehydrated that we are in any 24-hour period is when we wake up in the morning. And that makes sense because we haven't taken any water, electrolytes, we haven't taken in anything during the time that we were asleep. And so then what do most of us do in the morning? Well, we probably get up, go to the bathroom, and then we drink some coffee, or in my case, another diuretic that's Coke Zero. That's where I get my caffeine. And the more caffeine that's in the diuretic that we drink, whether it's coffee or Coke or other soft drink, then that increases our desire to urinate. And so when we pee that away, then we become even a little bit more out of balance because we're typically not taking in as much liquid in the coffee or the soft drink as we are getting rid of it because of the urge to urinate from being a diuretic. So we've got a compound problem first thing in the morning. Number one is we're dehydrated even if we don't know it. And then number two is the first thing that we're going to do is we need to get some caffeine into our bodies, most of us, and then that's going to actually make it a little bit worse. And so what are we going to do about that? Well, the first thing is that as soon as you can when you get up in the morning is to drink about a half liter of water. And so, you see everyone walking around with these water bottles. And I think that people are probably better hydrated than they used to be. But I also think that is something that we have good intentions to do, but we don't always remember to do it during the day. So the first thing, though, I want to go back to is this first thing in the morning that, a half liter of water, whether that's, I don't know how big if your water bottle that you use, do you leave it at work? Do you have one at home? I drink bottled water and they all come in half liter bottles. So it's pretty straightforward to drink a bottle of water, in the morning. Maybe drink a quarter liter before you shower, a quarter liter after you get out of the shower, and, there's your half liter of water. But here's the thing. It's like, well, what? I don't get it. Where's the connection? The connection is to your autonomic nervous system. So with the dysregulation, the stress isn't occurring yet because you're at home. When you get to school, you want to arrive at school with your emotions already regulated as best as you can. And that's why there's other things like a gratitude practice or exercising in the morning or things like that can get us in a much better frame of mind. If you're a person of faith, starting the day with some prayer, or if you journal, but this episode isn't really about those things. I don't want to get into some big, long, morning routine that has 6 different things that you need to do. And then you feel bad because you're not doing any of them or you're only doing one of them. But when it comes to stress, when it comes to that dysregulated autonomic nervous system, one of the biggest things that can help keep that on track is to drink water first thing in the morning and then to remember to drink throughout the day. And even though we carry that water bottle around, I think that a lot of private school leaders forget to drink and that we need to drink more than we do. And so my last suggestion would be that maybe you set reminders on your phone or on your smartwatch to drink because we are generally in a state of mild dehydration, and that is going to actually exacerbate the dysregulated nervous system. So, number one, drink water in the morning and throughout the day. Okay. Number 2 is STOP, and STOP is an acronym, STOP, and that stands for S is for stop, T, take a breath, O, observe, and P, proceed. So let me give that to you again. Stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. So let's say that you're in You're in a meeting. It's a stressful meeting with a parent, and you just ended the meeting, and the parent just walked out of your office, and you know all the signs of stress in your body. You know, your heart's racing a little bit. You have been grinding your teeth. Maybe your blood pressure's up. You know, the whatever signs you have as far as stress. Maybe you got a little of a pit in your stomach. And so what are you going to do? You're going to stop. So stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. So first of all, stop. I just think that we never stop. I've said before on the podcast that I think part of the problem that we have as private school leaders is that we're on that raft in the whitewater rafting in the raging rapids, and we have the helmet on and we have our oar and we're in the raft and we're just bouncing down the raging rapids, and we never, ever, ever get out of the raging rapids and stand on the shore and look at the raging rapids. And what I mean by that is that we just work, go, and we never stop. And we never stop to think about the work, to think about how we're engaging with work, to think about the effect that it's having on us, to think about, is the way that I'm engaging with work best practice as far as productivity. We just keep doing the same thing the same way. And so if we're go, when we're stressed and we're anxious, when we're feeling those things, we just need to stop. And then when we stop, we need to take a few deep breaths. And in number 3, I'm going to talk about a physiological sigh. There's actually a specific way to breathe when you're taking some deep breaths that can really, really help you out. But just for now, let's just say that we're going to take some slow, deep breaths. Hopefully, it works well if it's in through the nostrils and out through the mouth. So we're going to stop and we're going to take a few deep breaths. And I think O is actually the most important one, and that's to observe. So try and observe the situation as if you were a bystander to the situation. So you're standing there next to your desk. The parent has just left the office, and you're having all of these things going on in your body, 2 or 3 physical symptoms of stress, maybe 1 or 2, emotional or mental health symptoms of the stress. And so what are you going to do? You've stopped, you've taken a couple deep breaths, and then you're going to try to step outside of the situation and observe it as a bystander. And here's why. Your body is in a fight or flight response because of the stress of that meeting that you just had with that parent, or that interaction that you had with that student because of a discipline issue, or because of this agenda item that you weren't expecting that was on the board meeting, or because this teacher is, late again, and you've already talked to them 3 times about it, and you just feel that stress welling up in you and that fight or flight response. Well, here's the thing. Fight or flight is only supposed to work until you get away from the bear. And so but you and I both know that, like, when that parent leaves, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden the stress goes away, because your brain is kind of like still looking for the bear. They're looking for the danger. And there are certain things that just deep inside of us that we know are dangerous, but like sitting down in a comfortable office across from another adult having a conversation, and then that adult leaves your room, leaves your office, that doesn't necessarily tell the brain, okay, the danger is gone. And so if we can observe the situation as a bystander in O of stop, then we can sometimes get the autonomic nervous system regulated when it's dysregulated by just observing the situation and then coming to the conclusion that the danger or the source of the stress has subsided or left or ceased. And then sometimes that will get your emotions back on track much more quickly. Okay. And then P is proceed. So once we've stopped at S, and once we've taken a few breaths, T, and once we've observed the situation as a bystander, O, then we're going to proceed. We're going to get back to what we're doing. And all of that I just described, that can all take place in the matter of 15 to 30 seconds. I'm not talking about a 5-minute mindfulness practice. Quick. The acronym STOP. Stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. Okay, on to number 3. We're talking about we're talking about 4 things that we can do to feel less stressed at work. And number 3 is to do a physiological sigh. So a physiological sigh, again, that's S-I-G-H, like a, the word sigh. It's an example of a bottom-up stress management technique that can be used to reduce stress or anxiety. Okay? So to practice the physiological sigh, you inhale, but before, and you're kind of like just visualizing that the air is kind of starting at the bottom of your lungs and is kind of going up to the top of your lungs as you're inhaling. But just before you get to the top, you take another inhale. So it's kind of like this. It's like, and it's super hard on a podcast to see that. And so I'm actually going to link a short YouTube video that shows you how to do a physiological sigh. But it's basically just a regular inhale. But before you get to the top or the end of the inhale, you take another inhale over top of it. So it's kind of like, and then you're going to inhale that through the nose, and then you're going to expel the air, all the air, with a big exhale, and preferably through pursed lips. So if I'm breathing in through my nose and then out through pursed lips, you'll be able to see it on the video that's linked in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 78. And if you do 2 or 3 of those in a row, you're going to notice that whatever physical stress symptom you're having is most of the time going to reduce. So why does this work? Well, to understand it physiologically, this breathing technique works because you're reinflating the sacs in our lungs, and we don't use, when we breathe just normally, we don't typically breathe in and inflate all of the sacs in our lungs. I've seen articles where it says that sometimes it's only 30 or 40% when we do our normal breathing as far as what we're actually inflating. But if you do a physiological sigh and you do that big inhale, and then just before it's done, you inhale again right over top of it, that's really reinflating those sacs in our lungs. And then when you exhale, you're rapidly offloading all the excess carbon dioxide, and more oxygen, less carbon dioxide immediately provides a sense of increased calm and usually reduces your heart rate because your oxygen levels are going up and your heart has to work less hard to pump the same amount of blood. And it can contribute to a greater sense of calmness. And so the reason it's called a physiological sigh is because the physiology, the biology behind it actually works. And so again, just think about it as really inflating those lungs way more than you would typically do because you're being so intentional about doing it, and then really blowing off and blowing away that carbon dioxide. And this is something you can do it in a meeting if you do it kind of quietly. And it's not something that you have to like wait until the meeting is over. And if you can't, if it's weird to blow it out through pursed lips, even if you just blow it out through your mouth or even out through your nostrils, you can still get a lot more oxygen in and offload a lot more carbon dioxide than if you're just breathing normally. And so again, I know that that's kind of hard to describe with audio, but I will link a video and you can see that in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 78. Okay. So now we're up to the 4th and final thing that we're going to do, 4 things to do to feel less stressed at work. Number 1, drink water first thing in the morning. Number 2 is the acronym STOP. Number 3 is do a physiological sigh. And number 4 is take 5. So I've talked about this before on the podcast, and it's a mindfulness practice that I've been using for a couple years now. I first saw it when one of our teachers at school was doing it with some students, and I happened to be in that in that class when it was going on, and I've been using it since then, and it takes about 2 minutes, a little less than 2 minutes. And so what you're going to do, the reason it's called Take 5 is because you're going to do 5 things. And this is all about noticing things, and it's all about the breathing. Okay, so you're going to do, you're going to breathe in on a 3 count. So a big, deep breath in, like a 1, 2, 3, and then exhale 1, 2, 3. So let's just say that that's the rate at which we're breathing, and we're really trying to overinflate those lungs. And so again, a big breath in, 1, 2, 3, and a big breath out, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I just talked about in number 3 how overinflating the lungs, getting more oxygen in and getting that carbon dioxide out can help slow down your heart rate, can help with some physical symptoms of stress. But this mindfulness practice that I said takes about 2 minutes. The reason it's called Take 5, so you're going to start with your eyes open. Just get comfortable. But here's the thing. You can do it anywhere. You can do it standing. You can't do it driving because you're going to have to close your eyes after we do the first one. But you're going to start by having your eyes open, and you're going to take 3 breaths in, you're going to breathe in on a 3 count, and you're going to notice one thing. So let's say you notice the number 12 on the clock across the room, the clock on the wall. 3 breaths out. And then you're going to breathe 3 count in. You're going to notice a second thing. You notice the doorknob on your office door, and the 3 count out. So you're going to do that and notice 5 specific things. It doesn't matter what they are. And actually, the more mundane that they are, the better. And 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out. I keep saying 3 breaths, excuse me. 1 breath in on a 3 count, 1, 2, 3, inhale, 1, 2, 3, exhale. So that's 5. And then you're going to go 4, because you're going to close your eyes, and you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to do 4 things that you hear. 3 count breath in. Okay, I hear someone walking past my office. And a 3 count breath, big exhale. 3 count big inhale. Okay, I hear the copy machine. 3 count big exhale. 3 count big inhale. Okay, I hear a door down the hall closing. And so you just keep going through that. And so you start out with your eyes open, and you are doing 5 things that you see. Then you close your eyes, and you're doing 4 things that you hear, and then 3 things that you feel. So let's say that you feel the weight of your bottom on your chair. You feel your shoes on your feet. You feel your right forearm resting on your desk. And then 2 things that you smell, whatever that might be in your office or wherever you are in the school, and wherever you are at home. And then 1 thing that you taste. So it could be toothpaste if it's first thing in the morning, or it could be something that you just drank, some coffee, or it could be, some lunch that you had an hour ago, or whatever it is. So again, it's called Take 5. It takes less than 2 minutes. Big inhale, 3 count, big exhale, 3 count. And a couple things are happening here. First of all, I've already talked about the advantages of the breathing, the intentional breathing. But the other thing is that it's taking your mind off of the thing that's causing you the stress. And you're focusing on that doorknob and that number 12 on the clock, and that, and then you're focusing on the sound of the copy machine, or the weight of your bottom on the chair, or, you smell, something, you smell the I don't know, maybe someone made some popcorn in the microwave down the hall or something like that. And when your brain is activated and you're thinking about these things and focusing on these things, then you're not focusing as much on what's stressing you out, and it helps to regulate your autonomic nervous system. So those are the 4. So let's wrap it up with what are the big takeaways from today's episode? You have a very stressful job, number one. Number two, stress can affect your body, your mind, and your behavior. And number three, long-term stress will negatively affect your physical health and your mental, emotional health. And then the 4 things that you can do to feel less stressed at school. Number 1, drink water first thing in the morning and then also throughout the day. Number 2, the acronym STOP. S is for stop, T is for take a few breaths, O is for observe, and P is for proceed. Number 3, do a physiological sigh. And number 4 is the Take 5 mindfulness practice. And all of that will be spelled out for you, and there's also a video of the physiological sigh in the show notes. So I like to end every episode with a call to action. So your call to action is to do 2 things. Number 1 is to start drinking more water, especially first thing in the morning when you get up. And then the second is, among the other 3 strategies, stop, physiological sigh, and take 5, I would like to challenge you to pick one of those strategies and use it the next time that you're feeling really stressed out at school and see if it helps. All right. I want to wrap it up by telling you about another free gift that I have created for you. This is called The 6 Things That Every Private School Teacher Wants from Their Leader. And this guide is a 6-page PDF that I guarantee you that if you do these 6 things, the teachers at your school will be happy to follow you. And you can get your free guide by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/guide for the 6 things that every private school teacher wants from their leader. And then one last reminder that I've created an online course called Thrive Academy. And if you want to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader, that's probably not going to happen unless you get really intentional about boundaries between work and home, and about productivity, and about your relationships, and about things that energize you, and about your compelling why, and about your physical health and your mental health. And all of that is cooked into Thrive Academy. And it's about the transformation. It's not about information. It's one strategy at a time, one module at a time, one lesson at a time, and one sustainable strategy and at a time, and we can get there. I've seen it work. It's worked for me. It's worked for people who've purchased Thrive Academy. It's worked for coaching clients, and it can work for you. And so you can check out more about Thrive Academy at theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. All right, so if you've gotten any value from the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at mark.o.minkus@gmail.com, and just let me know about a strategy that you've used from an episode that you've heard, or shoot me an email with your biggest pain point right now, and maybe I can turn that into an upcoming episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. As I've mentioned, theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 78 is where you can grab today's show notes. And a new episode comes out every week on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would please write a review and rate the podcast, that actually helps the algorithm push this out as suggested content to private school leaders all over the world. And I'm on social at Instagram. I'm on Instagram at The Private School Leader, and I'm on Twitter at The PS Leader. And if you get value from any of the episodes on this podcast, I would love it if you would share the link to the podcast with another school leader in your life. And also think about an aspiring leader at your school and share it with them. And I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I want to say I appreciate you so much and all the hard work, all the amazing work that you're doing for the lucky kids and teachers and parents at your school. And thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join me here today. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.